to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh, only seen here out of Tin Mirror Studios, Kings Park, Long Island, and across the pond, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, how are you, bud?
Good, but I got to correct you. I don't think I'm across the pond. That would put me in England.
Well, you know, all right. What do we say? How do we want to introduce that?
Let's even though this is inaccurate, let's call it across the universe in memory of John Lennon. How's
There you go. Hey, you know, I was just watching the intro. When you see Mark Coleman, do you think like we're with Randy Savage when you see that picture pop up?
Yeah, he's one. You know what though? He was one of the. Was he like not one of the coolest guys we've ever had?
Oh yeah.
It was great. Is he okay, by the way? Can I ask quickly? What's going on? Was there something recently going on with him?
I think about a month and a half ago, his parents had a house fire. He broke into the house fire, saved his parents, and he got burnt pretty bad.
Oh,
and,
okay. Well, I
he
hope
was in
he's
the
all right.
hospital. I think he's okay. I mean, I haven't heard anything different. I know he lost his dog, though, in the fire, which totally just sucks.
Right. Yeah, of course. He's a good soul. Hope he's good.
A lot to talk about, Jimmy. Look, we're finally getting this together now. Tin Mirror, Abe, they put a lot of hard work in. We're finally getting this together. I'm really excited now, really excited. But let's talk about more important stuff. Lots of congratulations coming over from the Monte and the Pharaoh family to Jimmy Pharaoh and his wonderful new bride, Miss Karen McDaniel. So let me ask you this, Jimmy. Does Karen take your last name, or how's that working? What are you guys doing there?
It's Jimmy and Karen Pharaoh McDaniel. We're working on the legalities. But we'll fix that. That's fine. You know, it's not like I fared too well with my original name out by you. You know what I'm saying? Let's not get too personal.
No. All I'm saying, you know, because I really, from the videos that you guys shared, I really enjoyed it. And is it fair for me to say it was an unconventional wedding, right?
Absolutely. Sure. That's fair.
And when I was speaking to my wife about it, right, I said, look, these are two older people who have been around, the block once, twice. I don't know Karen's full marital status beyond Wahoo. I do know yours.
Right.
And it's like, who needs all the the old school wedding thing? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, you know what? And I know you'll agree with me on this. It's not always about pomp and circumstance. It's about heart and dedication. And all that mattered is that it felt natural and it felt real and it was pleasant. It was great. I didn't have to sit there and be all stressed out about the caterer or this thing or that thing. You know who the caterer was? A wonderful girl named Kate, who I happen to work with, who was like, "Hey, you want me to make you a cake, bro?"
Nice.
And I'm like, really? And she did. It was the greatest day of my life.
I will tell you though, you said you weren't stressed out, but I did catch a Jerry Maguire moment. Yeah, I definitely saw a Jerry Maguire moment coming from the Pharaoh.
Okay, which one?
You know what I mean by the Jerry Maguire moment, right?
Dude, I got to be honest, and you know this, you know me by now. I never saw Jerry Maguire.
Okay, so in Jerry Maguire,
I know he's an agent.
Whenever Jerry got stressed,
right,
he would rub the forehead. He would grab the forehead
like this.
Yeah, and I caught, but you weren't doing that. You actually were doing the Jerry Maguire. I go, I stress it a little bit. Because at first I'm like, oh, he's nice and relaxed. I'm like, whoa, all right. I see a little Jerry Maguire coming out.
You know what my holy shit moment was? Was when I saw the headdress, because the headdress was above everybody.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, my God. That's when I was like, whoa, this is happening.
Amazing.
That was my, come to Jesus moment. I was like, whoa, that was awesome. That was awesome.
And Bart was there, and I was amazed. Bart looked good. He looked like he dropped a lot of weight, man. I was like, holy cow.
What's more amazing is by day 3, he was only here for 3 full days, but by day 3, he finally was diving headfirst into the waves. I was like, dude, it's the beach. Eat it up.
Did you guys go to the beach, spend any time on the beach?
Yeah. Well, where he stayed, Karen hooked him up with a place, and where he stayed was a block from the beach.
Man,
you literally like hooked the back right hand turn, and boom, there was your,
Jimmy, can I read a couple of comments before we get going? I don't mean to interrupt you. Maria Davis says the headdress was beautiful.
Thank
Jason
you.
Morning.
Thank you.
Hello, Monte The Pharaoh. R.J. Hudson.
Hey.
Maria
What's happening?
Davis again. Congratulations.
Thank you, Maria.
Let me see.
How's Maria doing? Is Maria good? What's the story?
Maria is slowly recovering.
Okay. Okay.
You know, things are good. Things are going good as people are coming into the room. Dude, right. I'm just very proud of you. I'm very happy for you guys. You guys deserve. You guys deserve that. And
thank you.
It was a very, very good one. Did you and Bart work on any music? I meant to ask you that.
He came down with some demos, which I listened to, and he's going to be sending me stuff through. Thank goodness for the internet. He's going to be sending me some stuff so I can formulate my part of my contribution to the tunes. You know what I'm saying? So it's a process. It's like anything else. It's really kind of no different than Lennon and McCartney minus the cash, as far as how we operate. You know, he'll come with something. I'll take it and I'll do something with it and we'll tweak it. And the next thing you know, you got the two of us making one song. It's great.
It is amazing how music works nowadays. It is pretty cool, man. It is pretty cool.
Yeah. Can I get this in fast?
Sure.
I know you want to move on, but I want to thank you. Okay, seriously. Because this doesn't really happen without your going, you know something? You know, you said it to me several times, and you were like, I think Karen might be interested in you, and I thought, how is that remotely possible? Karen, of course, tells me that she didn't really see any of that coming either. You know what I mean? Honestly, coming from her end, but she did call me when you said, here's his number. So I want to say thank you to you because, you had a lot to do with this, man.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that, but it really has nothing to do with me. But I do hope that it does change your outlook on things in this case. So if I could explain to the family out there, me and Jimmy would talk back and forth. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy, but Jimmy would always say, you get what you earn, you get what you work for. And I would say to Jimmy, you can never forget the roads, because me and Jimmy, forget about our personal lives and our friendship together. It's a totally different animal. But if we just talk about show purposes, Jimmy and I have gone down quite a few different roads with this show, and have hit a lot of brick walls. We've had a lot of, I don't want to be, you and me don't really argue. We just stopped talking for a little while, I think.
That's fair.
Right? We don't really
That's
argue.
Fair.
We just kind of like just dissipate from each other. But we've had disagreements. But the one thing I would say to Jimmy is no matter what happens, you always got to remember what got you here. And, we start, again, we've went over this before, and I'm not going to reiterate it. But it's like we started with one guy, and then we went to another studio, then we went to another studio, and then, now we're in this studio. And we've had some great successes, and we've had some great failures. Isban in the house. How are you, buddy?
Isban, what up? What up, Isban?
But I think you have to recognize that. And then when you think about the show, so, I mean, let's talk about this right now, Jimmy. So we had Stan Hansen, the icon, Tony Gurria, the icon, and I want to get you. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. I know you've been pretty busy, so.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch Tony Gurria call me the Phantom. I saw it.
Well, we'll talk about that, and then we had Scott McGee, right?
Yeah.
And personally, I thought the interviews, as always, our interviews, and was off the hook, but I was highly disappointed because the dirt sheets usually pick up a lot of our stuff, and.
Right.
They didn't pick up any of that stuff on this. I was disappointed there to begin with. But then I was talking to Jimmy the other day. We interviewed Ken Patera, right? And here's the thing. I kind of write the basis of the script, and then Jimmy looks it over, and then Jimmy puts his Pharaoh touches on it. And then sometimes the interview may go right, and we go off script, and it becomes something totally different. Or sometimes we're right on script, and that's the way it works. And if anyone doesn't think that you don't need a scripted show, you're making a mistake, right? If you just come at this and you're just going to talk shit, it's just not good. That's my opinion anyway.
I agree.
But I was bitching to Jimmy because I get some weird things that get in my head. And, I get on certain kicks, and Jimmy laughs because you can tell when I get on these kicks. And we got on a Studio 54 kick, right? No one ever talks about Studio 54.
Nope.
And we started talking with Tony Atlas, Ken Patera, and we got some good bites out of it. And honestly, we wanted to know about it because we're older guys. And when we were kids, we dreamt about going to Studio 54, right?
Listen, and real quick, it's not just guys our age. Look, Studio 54 is history. Young kids should want to learn about that and know about it just to know it. Go on.
Like Plato's Retreat.
Right. Like CBG.
Yeah, there you go, right? Simpatico.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I get alerted to something on YouTube, and the dude is asking Ken Patera about Studio 54. I lost my shit. I'm like, my God, does anyone have some fucking originality out there at all?
Nope. I told you no. You wrote me in a text. You wrote this giant Monty rave. And I wrote back when you said the last thing was like, does anybody care? Their own original idea in their own effing head? I wrote back, nope. Because that's all there is really to it. You cannot be surprised by other people stealing your crap. It's been going on for thousands of years.
Again, if you're going to do this, look, some things are natural, right? Vince McMahon, things like that. That's all everybody's going to talk about.
Right.
But
gotcha.
You got to come up with your own original shit to talk about. I mean, me and Jimmy have tried to talk about the things that interest us and what we think interests the people out there. And in some cases, people will write us and go, you guys suck, right? Because it's not what they want to hear. But again, me and Jimmy are also doing this for ourselves, right? We're doing it because we enjoy to do it. We enjoy meeting these icons that we were with. Anyway, we'll start with Gurria. What was your problem with Gurria again?
He said Monte and the Phantom. Because lately I haven't been around. That's very clever,
that's what
Anthony. Wait a minute, I'm talking to Tony Gurria. Anthony, that's very clever of you. By the way, you look fantastic. I love your salt hair. Boy, does he have great hair, Mike, or what?
Dude, that guy was so big.
Yeah.
And dude, give me
great.
some props. The tattoo question. We always wanted to know what the tattoo meant, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was torture for me, and you already know it. So don't rub any more salt into my Pharaoh wound.
Dude.
That was brutal for me.
If you're not there, and if I'm not there, it's still us. It's still us.
Oh, you did. You knocked it out of the park, and he was a knock it out of the park guest, and he's a legend, and boy, oh boy. I mean, that's probably going to be right. Do I have a bigger regret not being able to be on that one?
Dude,
Ooh.
I got to tell you, I was actually butterflies for that one.
Right. Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. Look, that's where it all started with me and you. We're not talking right now. We don't have a show right now. If we didn't have that little special time period when I tuned you into wrestling, and there was Tony Gurria and Rick Martel, and there were the Samoans and the Moondogs. And again, anybody who Tony teamed with, they were going to win the tag belts. Tony's a legend.
Let me ask you, is this weird to you? So when we interviewed Steamboat obviously, icon.
Yeah.
We wanted the interview to go well, right? But I didn't have butterflies.
Right.
I had butterflies for Backlund, and I had butterflies for Gurria. How weird is that?
It's not weird. Refresh me if I'm wrong or correct me if I'm wrong. Number one, that's another one I don't think I was there for. I missed Steamboat, which sucked. But was Steamboat in the studio with you?
No, on the internet.
That's why when you have them in front of you, actually in the room with you, there is a difference. That's why you got those butterflies, because they were standing right there and you could shake their hand. You know what I mean?
I got you.
I think that might be it, because trust me, I do believe that if, Ricky Steamboat walked into the studio, let's say I'm there with you, and Ricky Steamboat walks in, I think we're going to get some butterflies.
You're probably right. I wasn't thinking like that. You know what I mean?
It's Ricky. It's Ricky Steamboat,
Dude, think about this. Think about the library we have. And you know what I was thinking? And again, you know what? I want to give our show some pops here, right? We had Scott Hall. Not many people have had Scott Hall.
No.
We had Bob Backlund's finest and last interview you'll ever see that man do, ever.
I believe it's his finest.
And I'll tell you what, if someone wants to call up that Hannibal interview, that was That was a travesty in my mind. That was an example of disgracing a legend in my mind.
Right.
Whether Hannibal wanted to disgrace him or not is not the point. It's like you got to understand that this guy was already having issues at that time, and you were going to do nothing but make people go, they feel bad for him. And that's what I don't think an icon like Bob Backlund, I don't know where Bob is now, like as far as his illness goes, but I am sure if a level-headed Bob Backlund would not want fans to go, I feel bad for Bob.
Right. He wouldn't. He absolutely would not. Yeah, that was a travesty. I agree.
We had Butch Reed's last interview. Right.
Nice man. I don't use sweet man often as a term, but Butch Reed was a sweet man.
Yeah.
He was cool. He was very cool. Very pleasant having him in the studio.
We're the only ones to have the fabulous ones together.
There you go.
I think our video had them way back, but
Right.
Right. I don't know. But anyway, props to you and me. It's I'm gonna start patting ourselves on the back a little bit.
That's funny.
All right, listen. Last night, actually Tuesday night, the final episode of Dark Side of the Ring, man, and it was, it's funny. Before we get into this, I want to say to you, I always go, Dark Side's done, man. There's nothing else to talk about. This season was one of the better seasons. They had Terry Gordy, which I thought was really good. Chris Adams, which I thought was really good.
Right.
Last night's episode, really good.
Right.
Harley Race, what's dark about Harley Race? Sandman, Like, why even do it? Like, I don't know. I was like,
Sandman's had some pretty heavy metal moments in his life. I think he'd be a good subject.
But I mean, but it's Dark Side of the Ring. You know what I mean?
I understand, but you know why? You know why I think this latest season is good and it works for you is because some of the ones that are working. Think about a couple of them, at least that you mentioned, as far as this season's episodes. Some of them are not all about murder or suicide or overdose, bro. There's some other subjects going on here because the dark side of wrestling is not just, unfortunately, it's not just about murder, suicides, or overdosing. There's other bad crap that happens too.
But sometimes, Jimmy, I think they're always reaching for something. Like, they had Buff Bagwell on. Now, that guy's had a ton of problems. I get it.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know. The story's not even written yet on Buff, and it's like,
He's written a lot of chapters, though. I don't disagree with them doing one, but apparently they didn't do it correctly, right? It's how you do something. It's how you do something. I'm sure there's a version out there that you would love. It wasn't made. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point. That's a great point.
That's all.
Well, I will tell everybody, Season 6 of Dark Side of the Ring, I think will be featuring quite a bit of Monte The Pharaoh. That is my prediction.
Cool.
That is my prediction, folks.
Nice.
So we'll see if I come through.
We're the Dark Side of Wrestling talk shows, so it is what it is.
That's for sure.
That's perfect.
That's for sure.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, so last night they did Black Saturday.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows what Black Saturday is, but Jimmy, I wanted to start off with a young Jimmy Pharaoh. Black Saturday. What do you remember of Black Saturday?
Anger, confusion, no connection. I was pissed. I had no idea. And, it's funny. Deep down in my heart, there's a Yankees and a Red Sox here. And, yes, the WWF is the good guys, and et cetera, et cetera. However, when I did not see my Gordon Soley and my, all the stars of Georgia Championship, when I did not see that, I was furious. I was angry. I was confused. This is not the days of the internet, Mike. We couldn't look it up on our phone to figure out what's going on here. We also love Georgia Championship Wrestling. Why? What was one of the biggest reasons, Mike? It was not 1 hour. It was 2. You just took away 2 hours of what, and what Vince gave us was just, look, this is what I remember. I was like, what is this? I don't want to see this crap. This wasn't even, it didn't have the importance of championship wrestling on Saturday nights at midnight on Channel 9. I was like, what's going on here? So a lot of confusion, a lot of anger, and I'm hoping you'll tell me you had some of that too.
I did. Even though we were WWE guys, Georgia Championship Wrestling gave us a different look, and the way I explain Georgia Championship Wrestling to people is it was very intimate with the viewer. WWE was not intimate with the viewer. Georgia Championship, and the one thing Georgia Championship Wrestling did every week was cliffhangers.
Yes.
Always ended 8:05 with something you're like, no, don't end this, right? Every time.
Yep. It was fantastic. I loved it. It was, and you know what's funny? You talk about intimacy. It's not that the WWF presentation back in those early '80s, late night, that when we were watching it wasn't intimate. It was your intimacy connection came with the WWF as a fan through the wrestler themselves, not as much the setting. If you understand what I'm getting at, although the setting was cool, the studio intimacy that you're pointing out here was what separated Georgia Championship Wrestling from WWF. If you understand what I'm getting at. It was a much more intimate setting, and it worked in those days.
You know what?
It worked in those days.
What's different to me, Jimmy, is tell me if I'm really saying this the right way. So, like we said, Georgia Championship Wrestling was intimate. It was at 6:05 on a Saturday, and then hopefully, if it was summertime, at 8 o'clock we'd go hang out till 10 o'clock or whatever.
Right.
WWE was like something you weren't supposed to be doing. And what I mean by that is, if anyone grew up in our era,
right,
there was
and in our area,
right, there was the Twilight Zone,
right,
the Honeymooners,
right,
and then pro wrestling. And,
well, don't forget the horse racing.
Well, but my point is, when we used to have sleepovers in the summertime, right? Remember, we would be up late. Like, wasn't it always awesome at 11:30 p.m. watching an episode of the Twilight Zone?
Right.
And it was like,
right.
You had the Honeymooners. Odd Couple, Honeymooners, Twilight Zone, and then maybe wrestling on a Saturday night.
Right.
But it felt like you weren't supposed to be doing it.
And you know what? Here's the little secret that only we know because we lived through it. You weren't supposed to be seeing this. It was on at midnight. We were New Yorkers. Wrestling was a dirty little secret, and it was all ours.
Yeah.
Now, when you would tune into Georgia Championship Wrestling, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. Everybody's just gotten done eating supper. Here you go. Here's Gordon. Oh, look at the little kids in the studio with us screaming, and the girls screaming for Tommy Rich and screaming for this one. You know what we had? We had old grandmas at the Allentown place watching the WWF. We had old grandmas and angry-looking middle-aged dudes, and you'd see some young kids like us, maybe, if you were lucky, some teenagers. But it wasn't necessarily family-friendly. Oddly enough, Georgia Championship Wrestling, getting back to intimacy, felt family-friendly in some strange way. We were a dirty little secret. We were on late at night.
Man, I love the way you explained that, dude, because I got to tell you, so I went to Yankee game yesterday, and the kid that was with me, Jack, he's a friend of mine's son.
Mm-hmm.
I said to him, "You better be grateful you're the age you are now." Because tell me if I'm wrong, Jimmy, and I'm not trying to be a disgusting old man, but the girls nowadays are so much hotter than the girls when we were growing up with.
I disagree.
Wow. No way, dude.
I disagree, and if you look at the women who were teenagers or in their 20s and the 70s, they were absolutely naturally drop-dead gorgeous, okay? But it's all a preference, my friend. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Raquel Welch in 1 million years BC, I'm sorry. You're not going to find somebody
dude,
nowadays.
But you're pulling out Raquel Welch. I'm talking about at the Yankee game.
Sophia Loren. What the frig, bro? No way.
You were talking about Georgia Championship Wrestling. We had grandmas in the WWE, but you would catch some little hotties at Georgia Championship Wrestling in the second row.
Now, wait a minute. Wow. I'm going to really sound like a nerd here. You actually were looking at the girls in the crowd during Georgia Championship. I was watching. I didn't even notice, bro.
All the time.
I didn't even notice. No wonder I was a late bloomer.
Dude,
anyway.
I'll be honest with you. And I think it was your dream, too. If I could be honest, one of our dreams was to go to Atlanta and go to the Omni and watch a card in the Omni. We felt that the Omni was the Madison Square Garden of Atlanta.
Let me tell you, that was the one of the many big mistakes of Ted Turner over the years. He did not realize, or maybe Vince blocked him, it's possible, but do you realize how much how well it would have done to have the Omni pay-per-views available to us on New York cable?
Oh, my God.
Are you kidding me?
Could you
That's
imagine?
a blown business opportunity if I've ever heard one. So it had to be Vince, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. Vince McMahon getting a stranglehold, getting in bed with the Dolans or whoever he needed to make sure that crap didn't happen. Well, who knows? I'm just speculating.
I will tell you, I pride myself on knowing a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on in wrestling, and compared to the matches and who beat who and all that stuff. Last night impressed me so much. I had no idea what the true story was between Black Saturday. So I wanted to bring it up to you, Jimmy. Jim Barnett was, we're going to call him the booker. He ran Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
Georgia Championship Wrestling had investors, or shareholders, they called them. Right. The Briscoes, Ole Anderson, a couple other wrestling guys, and Barnett. Okay. And Barnett was the majority holder.
For Georgia. For
Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Go ahead.
Ole Anderson felt like Barnett was getting a lot of different payoffs and thought that he was kind of sifting from the top, which more than likely, Jimmy, that's what was happening. Okay? And then,
now, who said this? Ole Anderson?
Ole Anderson. Well, there's Briscoe's in this thing. You really got to watch it, but it's like, all right. Ole Anderson says I need to take this away from Barnett, and actually threatens Barnett to throw him off the top of a building, and he takes over the majority shareholding of Georgia Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
Barnett quits, and see, now this is where I'm going to go to you on this. Barnett quits, and who hires Barnett? Now, Barnett is a big-time guy here. He's a homosexual in wrestling, which, wasn't accepted back then. But he had a lot of strengths. Vince McMahon hires Barnett. This is when Vince first buys the WWE. And the interesting fact about it is, from what I had understood, Senior had broken away from the NWA.
Mm-hmm.
The way they explain it in this one, Jimmy, is that the WWE, up to the point where Vince Jr. buys it, is still part of the NWA. Did you know that?
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, these are people's accounts, but is that really fact?
It's Cornette's account. It was Cornette's account. It was Briscoe's account. It was news to me, too. I thought they had broken away from the NWA.
They broke away from the NWA when the WWF was formed, so I'm really not sure what we're getting at here. Okay? Well, there's a point of origin for everything. Those guys can have their own account for all I care. I actually, now I don't care. I'll watch it. But, now you want to say this? How many years later? Well, look, it all started with Senior having the balls to tell the NWA, no, I'm doing my own thing, and I'm going to do it in this territory.
That's what I understood, too. But according to them, Barnett and Vince Jr. go to the NWA meeting, and they turn in their resignation. And they say, we're no longer going to be part of the NWA. And that's when they knew Vince was putting a power play on.
You know what's funny? This sounds very similar to what Vince Sr. did and had already done. So I really don't know what to say about that. I need to watch it for myself. That's basically all I can do.
Well,
not sure I believe it, one way or the other.
Eventually, Vince and Barnett convince all the shareholders, the majority of them, including the Briscoes, who get the biggest blame for it, to turn over to buy their shares from them. Now, there's I'm not going to go through the whole thing. There's some things that happen in between that. Vince ends up becoming the majority shareholder, hence Black Saturday.
Right. Now, listen, every other thing you've said to me outside of that they turned in their NWA membership cards or whatever, everything else sounds very plausible to me. Everything. But just not that they were still part of the NWA. I knew that they cross-promoted with the NWA, like Backlund would wrestle race in New York and then go to Georgia. They were still somewhat businessly friendly. But, if that's what went down, I find that hard to believe. His father took care of that way earlier.
By the way, Jimmy, Mitch Seinfeld saying Vince was not a voting member of the NWA. Okay, that could be what we're saying here, but then why would he feel the need to resign then? Why even bother? That doesn't make sense to me. You understand what I'm saying?
I can't answer that for you. I really can't answer that for you. I don't have an answer for that, other than did Barnett go on to work?
First of all, Mitch is telling me I'm wrong, but Mitch, again, is clueless as usual because this is from the documentary. This is not me talking. This is from the documentary. But Mitch opens his fat mouth before he, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Listen first, Mitch, then speak.
Well, look, but Mike, just because it's a documentary, like I said, this is somebody's account of this is someone's story of what happened. We know what happens with accounts. There's two sides. I'd like to hear the other side, which we probably never will. You know what I mean? But again, everything you say sounds plausible, but here's my question. Did Barnett go on to work for Vince for an extended period of time?
So Barnett ends up working for Vince, I think, between 83 to 87. They have a falling out. But by that time, Vince goes to Georgia Championship Wrestling. We have Black Saturday, right?
Right.
And it's not doing well.
Right.
All right? He does, but here's the funny thing. And, Vince offered Ole Anderson a job, and Ole told him to go fuck off.
Right. I believe that. Ole Anderson tells everybody to fuck off. That's why nobody liked him. Right? I mean, didn't Ole Anderson pass away with like one of the most hated people in the business? I'm not stating to slander. I mean, we've heard it over and over again. I'm not surprised by that. Does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. But here's the funny thing, and this is how your memory disappears, right? So Ole at some point goes to Turner and says, "Hey, your fans are angry. You need to bring back Georgia Championship Wrestling." So Ted gives him a Saturday morning slot.
Right.
And that's where my memory clicked in. Do you remember those bad year and a half of Georgia Championship Wrestling when they were bringing in people that you were like, remember Killer Tim Brooks? I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they were starting to well, first of all, the time slot was just wrong. Look, time slots were very important back in those days. It's not like today where you can click on and watch your program anytime you want. So going from something that we all fell in love with at 6:05 in the evening to suddenly being up in the morning. By the way, I was not a fan when WWF did that either, but somehow I liked it more because the programming was better. But, I just don't think that was a wise thing to do. The time slot screwed everybody up to begin with.
Well, I don't think he had a choice because Vince still had the slot.
Right. Well, you know what? To me, it was the beginning of the downslide and the end of Georgia Championship Wrestling because I don't remember it really recovering much.
But here's the interesting part. So Vince is doing very poorly, right?
Yeah.
His ratings are way down. But Barnett goes and finds a sucker to buy it back. And that gentleman's name was Jim Crockett.
Okay.
So Barnett, and then Vince gets this money, and then he funds WrestleMania, and we all know what happens after that, right?
Right.
Do you think Vince McMahon is more luckier than good?
No. Vince McMahon is good because Vince McMahon recognizes timing. Timing is what has always made Vince McMahon succeed. It's not just the fact that he has his own vision, whether you like it or not. He obviously had a big-time vision for wrestling, and he met those expectations. It's his timing and realizing now's the time to do a certain something. A year goes by, now's the time to do this. A week goes by after that, now's the time to do this. And then nothing happens for 6 months, and then he's like, I think I'll do this right now because I feel that it's the right timing. In general, way more often than not, Vince McMahon's timing, intuition, and instinct have been perfect.
With a lot of luck.
Of course you need luck, but I kind of mix luck with fate. Those two words to me can be interchangeable. So it's almost circumstances. You can call it luck. I don't believe there's any coincidences with the maker. And I feel like everything is basically fate and what you do with that fate that determines your outcome, which is a lot of the times either termed as bad luck or good luck. Sorry to get so deep.
No, I get what you're saying. All I'm saying is Vince in his illustrious career has gone through a lot of stuff and has come out smelling like a rose in about 99% of it. I mean, look at it this way. I'll just use some examples. I'll throw them out there and give me your answer to it. Bret Hart says, okay, Vince, I'm going to WCW. I'll lose to Shawn Michaels. We don't get Vince McMahon to heel, do we?
Right. Well, Vince realized what during the Survivor Series? He realized that it was time to do something really, really dastardly, since he was going to make this shift anyway. You know, do you think Vince really tripped upon the Attitude Era? Coming up with allowing Stone Cold to have input on his character and working with him?
But just think,
you know?
the infamous curtain call, which you love to call and ask these wrestlers about. If that doesn't happen, Triple H becomes King of the Ring. Stone Cold Steve Austin is probably a distant memory.
Well, in other words, thank God for the curtain call.
But this is what I'm saying.
Wow.
When you look at Vince, there's so many things that end up being this case. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Look, you know, all right, let me ask you this way. Do you think it was luck or fate that two college students from UCLA ran across each other on a beach and both discovered that they might want to start a band together called The Doors? Was that luck or fate?
Goes back to the beginning, right? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You see what I'm getting at? I mean, was it luck that you picked that day to walk to that certain spot at the bus stop? You could have been 20 feet away, bro.
Right.
You might have been talking to one of the guys on the football team while I sat there on that curb.
Right. You're
but
right.
You didn't. For some reason, you walked over there that day. Is that luck? Was that good luck for us? Yeah, obviously. But was it fate that you did that?
All right, so here's a question for you then.
Right.
Now I'm really going to challenge you.
Go ahead.
So we're talking about luck and fate.
Right.
Okay? So you got the Ringmaster. You got the Red Rooster.
Yeah.
You got Mr. Perfect. Okay? Let me get Ringmaster out of that. I don't think that really should fall into it. Let's go with Brooklyn Brawler, Red Rooster, Mr. Perfect.
Right.
Hear me out on this. All three of them could just be stupid, terrible gimmicks, right?
Right.
And don't give me the Mr. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying anybody out there. Don't give me the Mr. Perfect thing. They were doing vignettes of Mr. Perfect throwing a football 100 yards and he's running down and catching it. I mean, think about it. All right?
Right.
Hitting a strike. Then you had the Red Rooster. Is it just luck? Like, Mr. Perfect is known as one of the greats of all time and one of the great gimmicks. Undertaker. How stupid is that gimmick? That's no different than our friend Mike Halick, Mantor. It's in the same realm. Tell me, is it the wrestler who makes the gimmick, or is it just that? Is it luck or is it fate? What is it?
I think it's both. I think that the wrestler does make the gimmick, but if the gimmick doesn't give the wrestler a fighting chance, the wrestler is doomed. For example, Mantor, come on, man. Come on. No. A great guy, and he did his best to sell it, and to his credit, he somehow did well enough for people to still talk and care about him all these years later. Let's get that out of the way. But the poor guy, and he said it to us in private, too. I looked at that mask. I'm like, oh, my God. All right, what do I do here? And what did he say? He went to Vince. I got this. Don't worry about it. But on the inside, he was like, what? Obviously, The Undertaker is way different than Mantor. All right, it was the perfect guy. Was it fate that he should be the Undertaker? Yeah. Was it luck that it fell into his lap that way? Yeah.
But you agree that The Undertaker is a dumb gimmick, right?
No, I don't. I actually don't. Because The Undertaker is what makes Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives so great. Now, I don't know. I don't know if you're a fan of the Friday the 13th films, and a lot of them are terrible, okay? But Part 6 took a page out of the old Universal movies with the ridiculous bloodshed of Jason and the over-the-top nonsense with the maggots and all that crap. They made it work. There's something about The Undertaker that is dark and convincing, and of course it's over the top, but because he's never over the top, the over-the-top gimmick comes across serious.
All right, Red Rooster. Red Rooster.
Red Rooster, you're doomed from day one. I don't care who you are. You're doomed.
Why?
And Terry Taylor, let's face it, Terry Taylor was definitely a good wrestler, had a good look, but was not that much of a talker. Let's be serious. And if anybody was going to get stuck with it, if there's a choice between him and Kurt Hennig, there's no choice. So he was going to get stuck. It was fate that he got stuck with that, and bad luck too. See how those words gets right back to what I said.
So if Terry Taylor's Mr. Perfect and Mr. Perfect's Red Rooster, do both gimmicks fail?
Yes. Yes. Because Kurt Hennig would never, ever convincingly want to do it, and his body language would show his disappointment, number one.
But Terry Taylor was a great wrestler. He couldn't have been Mr. Perfect?
No, he couldn't have been unless he somehow suddenly overnight became an amazing, smug man on the microphone, which I can't see. You know, Rick Martel is one of the few people who came from the tushy face, baby face, good guy, and was somehow able to turn that into I'm an absolute ass with the model.
All right, dude, we're going to do a speed round because we literally got 3 minutes before, and then we got 10 minutes before we have guest Bob Cook on the second main show, okay?
Okay.
So we were on ESPN again this week. Another great job by you, Jimmy. I got to tell you, we really should talk to Coach and have him do a show on our channel, man. I got to tell you, I love doing that show with you. It's 15 minutes of nothing but good stuff. Yeah. But let's go over it real quick. I'm just going to go over the card from France. Cody Rhodes beats AJ Styles. Thoughts on that match?
Good, solid match. Crowd absolutely insane. Good, solid match. Obvious outcome. But I still enjoyed it nonetheless.
Cargill and Belair beat the Kabuki Warriors for the women's title.
A little sloppy at one point during it. I'm not sure who's really truly to blame for that, with the referee and the tagging and stuff. But great finish, and not surprised at that result either.
Damian Priest defeats Jey Uso.
It was just there. The match was just there. It was fine. It was serviceable. I'm glad that Priest won, and as long as Uso is losing, no yeet.
Bayley defeats Naomi and Tiffany Stratton.
I did expect Bayley to hold on to it, but Tiffany Stratton is the bomb. I absolutely think that she's the next, she could be, if there is such a thing, the next, at least, on the Charlotte, level. She's over to me. She's really that good. So I'd like to see a lot more from her.
Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga beat Randy Orton and Kevin Owens.
My favorite match of the night. That was great. Le Street Fight. I loved it. The crowd was absolutely insane all night. Got to give props to the
better than the Puerto
crowd.
Rican crowd last year?
Oh, right there, if not better. I mean, it's on the same level. I mean, what are we talking? Great and great.
I'll still hold fact that I feel that I had never seen wrestlers get shaken by a crowd, and I felt like, especially the three-way, Naomi had to take a powder. They were taken aback by such a hard crowd. Recently, AEW owner Tony Khan appeared on Cincy 360 and gave his insight into why he thinks AEW is better than WWE. I believe AEW has the most exciting matches and the best storylines. We're really a challenger brand. We're fighting against an established and a huge fan base in a pretty quick time. And that's coming off the comments where he called the WWE the Harvey Weinstein of professional wrestling, but won't get into that.
Tony is desperate. Tony has got revisionist history. They did start off with a bang, but if Tony was living in the now and the present, he'd realize that he has lost hundreds of thousands of viewers, and he's not developed his own true superstar characters. I don't want to hear it. Okay, the Young Bucks were stars before they ever got there. So was Kenny and a bunch of other of them. When it came to trying to push guys like Wardlow, who were truly, this is really the first time you're seeing them. What have they done? Okay, where is their, Mankind? I want to know. Where do they have somebody that they took and made him bigger than where he was? Haven't done it yet. So he's very delusional. The cheap shot about the Harvey Weinstein, I've already explained to you that I think Harvey Weinstein's an absolute monster. I don't think that Vince McMahon is necessarily an absolute monster until the court of law says he is, and I haven't heard that yet.
I think that case is turned into worm right now. Vince McMahon will whatever. Anyway, I wanted to give a shout-out to What a Day had the Sex Symbol podcast. I don't know if you caught that, Jimmy. I know you were working.
No.
Got to tell you, forgive me, I forgot the lady's name that was on last night, but she was very good. Very, very entertaining. I found her very, very entertaining.
Okay.
I like women who can speak openly about sex with a comedy twist. You enjoy comedy. Anyway, I thought it deserved a shout-out. We got so much wonderful shows on the channel, Dan and Benny in the Ring. They shot the first canned version of the Wrestling Challenge or whatever. What's the name
Wrestle
of it?
Test.
Wrestle Test. Thank you, sir. Which was a name created by our own Jimmy Farrow. Thank you, Jimmy.
The Monte and the Pharaoh show.
That's
what it was.
Real quick, before we get out of here, everybody please join us with the great Bob Cook at 9 o'clock. Ric Flair gives his side of the heated restaurant incident. Caught me off guard. Ric Flair has apologized for losing his temper during a confrontation with a restaurant employee in Florida over the weekend. Flair, 75, was celebrating his stepdaughter's college graduation at Stone Pizza in Gainesville, and a surveillance footage emerged of him calling a staffer dipshit and inviting them to settle the differences outside. He has now apologized. Thoughts on that, Jimmy?
What does he mean when he said he was caught off guard? He was caught off guard because somebody taped him. That's what made him caught off guard. He was acting natural. He was being how Ric Flair unfortunately is nowadays, a drunken mess. That's what he was being. All right? So the apologist can fuck off. He was totally out of line. I thought it was hilarious that the guy sitting down on the thing was like, I don't work here. I'll take you outside and beat the shit out of you.
Here's the deal. What did Ahmad Johnson used to say? Ric Flair smells his own shit. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, he acted like a cocky, drunk, arrogant guy with money, and then he offered a $1,000 tip to insult the guy he was in the argument with. Fuck you, dude. Take your money and shove it up your ass. I don't worship you at all. Fuck off. There you go.
Unreal. All right.
That is what it is. What do you think, Mike?
We're going to say adieu for the 9 o'clock show with the great Bob Cook, which will be very exciting. And then we have a few other announcements on the main show. I'm asking everybody to hang in there, swing over for some really serious entertainment at 9 o'clock. I'm very happy with Tinmira Studios who got this together. Jimmy, your internet is perfect. There's no breaks. It's unbelievable. You're a married man. You married a beautiful woman by Karen McDaniel. Look at that ring on there, right?
That's nice.
I had to slap Mitch Seinfeld down a little bit because he wasn't listening.
What are you doing?
He wasn't listening.
Mitch, thanks for the Mazel Tov, by the way. What are you doing? Hey.
I love Mitch. I love him.
I know.
I love him to death.
What are you doing? Anyway.
Because he has to listen.
Yeah, well,
I said,
if that's your dynamic
I
with him,
thought Vince was out of the NWA, but the documentary said that he was still in it.
It doesn't matter what oh, sorry.
All right, send us out. We'll see you guys 9 o'clock. Bob Cook in studio.
You've been watching Monte and the Pharaoh, and until a couple of short seconds from now, later.